Sometimes the people who look the happiest are the ones carrying the heaviest stories. Katie Grimes spent years performing confidence when quietly unraveling inside, growing up with abandonment and addiction in her family, and repeating those patterns in relationships that mirrored her pain. But somewhere in the chaos, she found recovery, faith, and a deeper truth about what it means to actually feel alive. This is a story about learning to slow down, face the truth, and find peace in the parts of yourself that once felt unlovable.
Around that time that I had gone through the breakup, that was the big moment. I was told by a peer at work that I had terrible self-awareness, and he was right. I didn't understand how my actions impacted other people.
I'm Matt Gilhooly, and this is The Life Shift, candid conversations about the pivotal moments that have changed lives forever. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Life Shift podcast. I am here with Katie. Hello, Katie.
Hi.
Thank you for wanting to be a part of this
Oh
without
my
knowing where we're going
gosh.
to go.
No, I think it's just so amazing what you're doing, and for you to tell me the story about how this podcast has not only changed the life of yourself and has given you so much purpose given what has happened to you at 8 years old. Like, what an incredible opportunity to share my story and hopefully help someone else who's going through a rough time and just can't see the light at the end of the tunnel. I have so much experience with this.
Yeah. Well, I think that a lot of people have had lots of these pivotal moments. And I think that there is a group of us that have, I guess it's a good thing that we've had the ability to have the self awareness, the ability to reflect, learn from, grow from. But I also think there's a subset of people that have had knock after knock after knock, and they don't know what to do with it, or they don't
Yeah.
feel like they know how to process it, or they just aren't around people that have the tools to share with them. So I think of those people when I have these conversations and hope whatever we're saying hits them in the
Yeah.
way that they need it at that time to
Yeah.
kind of help push them out of whatever thing they're stuck in. So I just love it.
Yes. Someone said to me today, so he was telling me something that was been bothering him and was really pivotal in his life, and he said to me, like, so I'm not alone, like you've experienced this too. And I was like, oh my god, I did an entire podcast on this. Yes. Like, not just an episode, I'm talking like 100 episodes. And there's
Yeah.
just this feeling of not being alone. I guess that's the best way to describe it, because it can feel so lonesome when we're just in the thick of it and trying to figure out, like, why. I know God doesn't give you more than you can handle, but like, it's a lot to handle sometimes. I joke, like, I know it's all Jesus take the wheel, but it seems like he's off-roading right now. Like, I'm good.
Yeah, it's so true. And I think that a lot of us have been in these situations in which we feel really alone in the circumstance. Like, I think of Matt, 8 years old, just learned that his mom had died, and I felt so alone. And I think logically, I knew that I was not the only boy with a dead mom. Like, I think I knew that logically, but it sure felt like I was the only one because I didn't know anyone in my circle. I didn't see anyone living this life without. And so I just couldn't imagine it. But I think logically we know we can't be the only one that faces this, but our heart tells us differently because we're like, I just don't know how to handle this.
Well,
But life,
I think, like, when you're telling that story, I think of myself. If I were in that position, I think my brain would be absorbed with fear of what would happen next versus logically making sense that I am the only one that, I'm not the only one that's gone through this. Cause it's like you said, unless somebody's like right there in front of your face who is also the same age and lost a parent, or maybe a few years older, it's mostly like a fear of abandonment and loneliness and just wondering, like, what's life going to be like and how that defines you as an adult. And
yeah,
we don't even know,
yeah.
we don't even
And
know.
we don't, and we don't know what's going to happen tomorrow either. I mean, I guess we can evolve every day if we choose to. I this podcast, like you said, is just something I could not have imagined because all the things you just described was my life. Because when my mom died, it was 1989. People were not talking about grief. People were not. My parents or my dad did not have the tools. My grandparents did not have the tools, and so I just assumed that everyone needed to see that I was going to be okay, which then leads to perfectionism out of fear of abandonment, like you said. And it's like, if I'm not perfect, my dad's also going to leave, right? And so I did that for 20 plus years until I got it together and figured out how to grieve properly. And now I just feel so fortunate that I've had the opportunity to reflect on that and see how I can move through things, because once I figured it out for myself, I knew how to process grief when my grandmother got sick, and I got to do all the right
Yeah.
things because I
Oh,
did all the
beautiful.
wrong things earlier,
Yeah.
and then I have that time to reflect. So
What a
I think it's
gift.
beautiful, and I say it all the time. It's like the best, it's the most devastatingly beautiful experience that I had, and I would not trade any of it for a different type of experience besides her still being here, obviously.
Right. Yeah. I can relate so much. I mean, we're of similar ages, and you're right. Like back then, no one talked about how they were feeling. And my dad even says it to this
Unless
day.
it was
Like,
good.
right, right. And then they were telling everybody. But it's very much like sweeping things under the rug. And we joked when my great aunt had passed away. We were joking as a family about how this family in particular will sweep things under the rug. So one of us pulled a rug up, fake rug, and another one grabbed a broom and we started sweeping. And I said, what if we got to just do it differently? Like, what if we got to
Mm,
say how sad we are or how funny she was, or and I think I have been given that gift where I too got to had people pass prior to my grandmother passing, and I got to show up so differently like you,
mm,
and also because I had done the work, because I had faced so much grief before that, because I had been stuffing my feelings down and trying to pretend like I was fine and put the onus on other people. So like yours was perfectionism, so was mine, but it was people pleasing as well. And just wanting everybody to like me because I just felt so unloved at times. And we can
mm,
kind of get into that.
yeah.
But yeah, I just very much grew up in that generation where you just sweep everything under the rug and you got to pretend that you're fine and pull yourself up by your bootstraps. That was like one of their phrases. And I was like, how about we like sit down and just hug each other and we cry? It's like, and I'm glad that I'm with you. Like if I look back on my life, I wouldn't trade any of it because, but believe me, in the midst of it, I would have traded any of it. But now I'm like,
It's
oh, that's why I learned that. Oh, okay,
Yeah,
okay.
totally. Yeah. And now there is a group of us is similar ages where we're all just sharing everything. And it's because we weren't able to before. But I think it's beautiful. I think this is what connects us. Our stories connect us. And like the gentleman that you were talking to earlier, of like, he just didn't realize that other people had faced the same things. And maybe the more people that he can hear talk about it makes him feel safe and seen and heard and validated. So thank you for just coming on this journey. Before we get into your story specifically, though, 2025, 2020, going into 2026, who is Katie? How do you show up in the world? How do you identify these days?
Yeah. I show up as somebody who has a zest for life and who loves to dance and be playful and have fun, but who is very much in touch with her feelings, very empathetic, very thoughtful, who also is quite sensitive still, and I don't know that that may ever change, but I've definitely have made a lot of progress, and I mean that in the sense of sometimes I still take things personal and I don't mean to. Um, but I'm somebody who has found her purpose in life through my business of coaching and the podcast that I have. And what a gift that has been. And I think I'm also somebody who is an avid traveler and who is contemplating, is motherhood really what I want as a 42-year-old woman, or is it just been projected on me my entire life that I'm good with kids? So it's just been an interesting conversation. And I'm in the midst of falling in love with somebody that I really care deeply about. And that's such a beautiful journey, while also having a very small circle of friends for a girl who used to be friends with everybody. I hold that title of friendship very near and dear to my heart while still remaining friendly and kind. I try not to be nice anymore. Nice is for me so other people perceive that I'm good. No, I'm kind. I'm being
Mm.
thoughtful of other people, and that kind of summarizes it.
I mean, that's beautiful. I love that. And I love too your comment about motherhood because I think that's one of another topic in which people shy away from saying out loud if they're contemplating, if it's not, like good for you. That's your decision. And I think there are so many things that society placed on us. I live the checklist life, like straight off the whatever book that was not given to me, like get good grades, go to college, get a good job, get promoted, buy a car, buy a house, like I was just doing the things like when does the happiness come from it? And it's,
Yeah. Well,
so
I can relate.
I just love that you vocalize that and say that because that is your decision and you get
Yeah.
to unpack whether or not you want to do that.
It's
I
so
love it.
true. It's so true because there was a checklist. I think quote the American dream. And, I remember my gynecologist asking me, do you want to fertilize your eggs not fertilize them, but save them, whatever, freeze your eggs. That's what it was, fertilize them. Then I would have children. And I said to her, and this was the first time I felt so calm and so connected to God. I remember saying, if it's meant to be, it's meant to be. And I started laughing. I go, God, I wish I could say that about other shit in my life. But I would also say that Katie 2025 into 2026 is more faith based. And I don't mean that from a religious perspective. I mean that more from a spiritual perspective. Like, I trust myself and I trust God more and more. I just choose to call it God, but like, it's my higher power. It's me inside of there, just trying to understand what is my next step and how to really walk forward from a place of alignment. Like, what, under the construct of having to make money in order to, quote, be happy. Um, and just trusting that I'm going to be taken care of because I simply was put on this earth. Like, how cool are we, and all of us listening, that we got to be chosen to be here right now at this second? Like, that still like boggles my mind. And I think the more that I have gotten in touch with the spiritual side of myself, the more that I'm like, it is a privilege to be alive. It is a privilege. And so what am I going to do with it?
No pressure. No pressure.
None. Zero.
No, I
None.
think it's great. And I think it's, people or the cynic in me is like, you also have bad days, right? Like, I
Oh my
mean,
God.
you
All the
don't
time I was
always have,
crying.
okay.
Literally 2 days ago, had a massive bout of depression, was crying, if I'm honest, I was having suicidal ideations in the middle of playing pickleball. Like, to the point where I stopped the game and I was like, baby, I need to tell you what's going on because we're very competitive with each other. And like, I was like, he's probably going to trash talk in just a second. And I was like, I need you to know that in the midst of this game, the suicidal ideations are coming. And it's not that I want to commit suicide, it's that the voice is so loud that it's distracting me and I'm like, can't play despite the fact that I'm that I'm winning, and I'm like joking with him, but I'm literally crying. But yeah, no, I don't think it's cynical of you. I think it's realistic of you to ask that question because I'm brutally honest on the podcast, in my personal life, with my clients, on Instagram, that like, this is not all sunshine and rainbows. Like, I literally had to call my coach on Monday and was like, it's back again. And I'm really depressed. And I have no idea why, because I'm really happy. And she's like, okay, go back to the tools that you know that work. And what is that voice trying to tell you? And it was a matter of like, Katie, you've been going 90 miles an hour. Why don't you sit down with us and let us talk? We have something we need to say. So yeah, no, I have. Thank you for asking about the bad days because they come.
Yeah, I
They
think
really
it's
do.
important. I think there's this like this false sense of like this happiness epidemic in which everyone just like projects that it's all sunshine and rainbows and like we're just humans trying to do this, so life is gonna hit us in certain ways, or we're gonna wake up one day and not even understand why we feel the way we do, and then we just move through it with the tools that we have. So thank you for that. I just think it's important that we are as honest as possible, and I think I love, despite how hard that was for you, not to say it but to live
Yeah.
through it the other
Yeah.
day.
Yeah.
Thank you for saying it.
Yeah. Thank you. I really appreciate that. And it feels really safe to be able to say that because I think people get it twisted when you, because they don't want to say that they're having these thoughts, that they don't want to be here, and that the pressure feels like too high, and they aren't where they want to be versus where they are. And that's what I was struggling with. Like, where I am today versus where I want to be are night and day. And I know we'll get into this story in a little bit, but like, that's what was happening. And so I just needed to get grounded in, like, okay, so what can you be grateful and accept that's happening right now? And I'll be honest, I struggle with not being honest on especially Instagram, to be like, hi, you run a business, nothing's wrong with you if you make no money today. Because I've joked with my boyfriend, I'm like, well, I don't want to bring people in who like don't make any money in their business, but in the same breath, I also want to normalize the ups and downs of owning a business and the effect that it can have on your self-esteem.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
100%. No, I love that. So let's figure out why you can do this now appropriately. So fun story. I don't know which life shift moment we're going to center today's conversation around. So whatever kind of comes to your heart and you really want to share with others of this before and after moment. So I'd love for you to kind of paint the picture of your life leading up to this main pivotal moment that we're going to talk about today, and go back however far you need to kind of give us that before Katie.
Yeah. So to give you context, the pivotal moment happened, I think, in 2009, 2000, let's call it 2010. So at that point, I am 27 years old. I'm screwing the math up really quickly here, but for the first 27 years of life, let's call it, my parents got divorced at a young age, and so as a result of that, I learned that I had a lot of abandonment, and so I was very attached to my mom, who eventually we became very codependent, and I became the parent. But I say all this because on the side, like I remember my best friend, we've known each other literally day one. And she was like, I just remember the Katie who was like laughing and joking and playing. And like, she's like, you were so silly. Like, you were just cracking me up all the time. I was very talkative in school. I would always get S for satisfactory because I was not paying attention. In my teenage years, I was at the mall more than I was wanting to be at school. I never realized that like communication and my ability to communicate with somebody and my thoughtfulness could become a career. But I
That
will say
wasn't a
that
thing back then anyway.
it wasn't. Oh my God, no.
Yeah.
And nobody was talking about it. I felt, I mean, let's focus on the stuff that just didn't really work. I think the stuff that didn't really work was I was constantly seeking other people's approval. I was being bullied relentlessly at home with some family members who were taking care of me while my mom was working. I was being bullied as soon as I got on the school bus, and I was being bullied relentlessly until the bell rang. Oh, excuse me. But as soon as the bus dropped me off. So it was constant about the way I looked, what I said, how I acted, what I wore, you name it. And so from, 6 years old until really, I mean, it didn't stop until like seventh, eighth grade. I was somebody who was deeply insecure about the way she looked, and I was hiding the fact that I have really light skin and dark hair. And so I would bleach my hair, and I was going to the ends of the earth to try to be liked by everyone and anyone by being really outgoing and being silly. Um, but yeah, like always, like class clown. Like, I'm shocked I didn't get class clown. um, but I also was a ballet dancer and danced about 4 or 5 days a week, and absolutely loved dancing. Like, dancing was my outlet. Like, dancing was where I, quote, like blacked out. Like, I was in the most beautiful way. Like, I was so grounded and so present. And it was a way to just move my body and get out of my head. And it was really good. And like, I loved it. And I think I had some really amazing teachers who took really good care of me, and did not have the experience that a lot of ballerinas have around body dysmorphia. I did not have that. But, I think leading up to that incident, going back, I was a people pleaser. I was constantly either gossiping, criticizing of myself or other people, and I was really self-centered and selfish at times. I was a young girl, so I was constantly talking about myself or talking about other people to be liked. And I had a lot of friends, but I mostly was friends with men. The reason being was because I didn't trust women. I didn't know that I didn't. I desperately wanted to be their friends, but I found them to be really catty, which was interesting because I was a gossip queen at that time. But the guys weren't. And the guys were great. Like they didn't want to sleep with me. They just wanted to laugh and have fun. And I'd go to the parties and all that good stuff. But I think eventually I realized that's not what they wanted me around for. They did want those types of things. And I started to really dive into sexual experiences without having any context for what I was doing or why, and feeling very ashamed that I was doing it because I grew up Catholic and it was very much a cardinal sin to do that shit.
Was it the feel wanting to feel wanted kind
Yeah.
of
Oh,
element to
hell
it?
yeah.
Okay.
Like wanting to feel wanted, wanting to
Attention.
feel loved, attention, validation that I was pretty, validation that I was liked. That was a major theme my whole life and still can be at times. It's not in the same way anymore. And it's certainly not to the extent that it was, but there are times it still creeps in if I'm honest.
Yeah. Were you also, did you do well in school?
Yeah, I was like A, B, sometimes a
Okay.
C
So you weren't
student.
like an overachiever or any in that capacity to be perfect in that way.
No, no, I would if I loved so I had a undiagnosed ADHD. And so if I really liked a topic, I was dialed in and so focused. I've always been the first to raise my hand in class. So that is like I guess you could consider that an overachiever in some respects. Like I'd always sit in the front. I'd always raise my hand. I if I was called on, if I didn't know the answer, I'd just own it or I'd try to bluff. Again, it was just sort of like my friends always used to say, like, you can talk a dog off a meat truck, like in the sense of your level of communication and confidence of just like, oh, yeah, this is what we do. And then as I got into um, like I started bartending as I got older and was getting off to college. And at that time, my mom, I'm not talking about my dad, but my dad and I had a okay relationship, but I was very angry at him. And I didn't realize it was because of the divorce.
Mm.
But my mom, I realized had alcoholism. And I learned that at 21 well, really 20 when I started drinking. And that's where the like I'm the parent, she's the kid, like I was telling her what to do. I remember paying her bills at very like young age, like 8 years old, like because
Wow.
it was like learning how to balance a checkbook. And my mom was very high functioning and very smart and oh my god, so beautiful and just funny, oh my god. And I saw that melt away time after time after time. And I think going off to college, I wanted to stay close enough in case something happened, but far enough away that I could feel that separation. So there was a lot of grief between my dad and I because he was helping with college and was like, why not go to a state school? And I couldn't tell him. I hid it from my entire family. I'm like, couldn't tell anybody what was happening at home because
Mm.
it was verbally abusive, but then it was starting to become physical.
With your mom.
Yeah. Which is eventually one of the pivotal moments, but that was a not the pivotal moment that I'll talk about, but that was a pivotal moment where I decided that I really was going to go study abroad in Australia. I had been asked a few weeks before and I was like, fuck it, I don't know how I'm going to do it, but I'm going to make it happen. Bartended, worked, hustled, grinded, like made it happen. My mom actually gave me money too. And yeah, and then I came home, lived there again, and it was just it was almost like such a dysfunctional relationship. It was almost like we broke up, got back together, broke up, got back
Mm.
together because I kept moving back in to try to take care of her and just help with the mortgage and things like that
Was it
at,
like a constant worry for her or because you recognized that she was showing? Okay.
money was
And
always
if
a worry.
you
Mm.
you were the savior or you could be the savior in your head, maybe?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think not only was she asking me, but she
Oh, she
also,
was that. Okay.
she was also instilling in me that at a young age I should be able to be a jack of all trades and be able to fall back on any, not be good at one thing but be good at many different things so that if ever I lost my job I could go bartend or so she knew I had money and so I was learning how to use a credit card. And but the problem was is I was learning to overspend because I was paying her bills.
Right.
And that's 18, 19, 20 years old.
Right. And you're
Yeah,
in what you would say is maybe, I don't want to put words in your mouth, a dysfunctional type relationship with her because as much
1000%.
as you love her and want to protect her and take care of her, she's also abusive in ways that any other relationship that you have, you might not accept.
Well
Is that
said. And
really
I think,
complicated?
now that I'm out of it and I can see, go back and look at it, I'm like, holy shit, that was so dysfunctional. And it's
Yeah.
no wonder why I became attracted to friends, jobs, and men who would say one thing and do another, right? Like, oh, hey, I'll be home at 5 and then not show up. It's what I knew. And so
So it's
it was
kind
a
of like
pattern.
comfort in a weird way because you knew it.
1000%.
You knew what to
Yeah.
expect.
And then I could be in control because I was like, well, I'll just call 7 times and then they'll finally answer, or whatever it was. It was very, very disheartening and dysfunctional. And it's not a relationship that I had like that with other people, but it showed up in other ways with other people, like gossiping about somebody else. And we were always taught as a family, like, you sweep your feelings under the rug. You know, God suffered for our sins, so therefore we should feel pain as well. And I was like, okay, whatever. And then, and what did I say? Not feeling your feelings. And then I forget what the third one was that I was just talking about, but it was just constantly, oh, that's what it was. If you talk about other people and talk about the thing they told you not to talk about, like, don't, just between you and I, it meant you cared about them. That's what we were taught as a family, which is so
To share their secrets?
dysfunctional. Yes, isn't that? I
Oh,
know, I see your face. Isn't that weird? That's not what
that's
you
so
do.
nice.
That's actually not, that's
Yeah.
not fact. That's not what you do. So I really pride myself on that now, as being somebody who is the secret keeper. Like,
Hmm.
I always say to people, just so you're aware, the only way I can build trust with you and you, and vice versa, is if I keep what we say, if the both of us keep what we say between us. But I also say, please know that I wasn't always like this. And it's important because I think people are skeptical because they've
Hmm.
had people lie and share their secrets, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. So you're, I mean, you're navigating the time when you should be finding yourself, when
Oh,
you
yeah.
should be finding your identity and what you want to do and what you want to put out into the world. And here you are just trapped, essentially. Like you're probably living, but also trapped emotionally by this relationship that you have.
1000%, because it was typical of any child who grows up with addiction or dysfunction. You grow up a hell of a lot quicker
Hmm.
than a child who is in a loving and comfort home. Not don't mistake me when I say loving. Like, my mom loved me. It was just she had an addiction and I didn't know to call it an addiction. I just knew that she couldn't stop drinking. And we never talked about the fact that alcoholism ran in our family. That was not There was a lot of secrets that were kept amongst my family, like how my grandfather died from suicide. And that was not something that was told. We were told he died from cancer. It was just that
Hmm.
that error. They would just lie. We talked about this earlier. Lie, sweep things in the rug, make up a different story, which also made you feel like you can't trust what the other person is saying. And I also learned by being bullied that when that I couldn't trust my intuition. Like, if I was told to go right by the bullies and I'd go right, they'd be like, I never told you to go right, go left. So being gaslit a lot made
Hmm.
me constantly question what I said, read I mean, texts weren't until much later, but like, replay conversations in my head, overthink, should I have said or done that differently?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was
You just
pretty
second
chaotic.
guess yourself in everything you
Oh,
do.
I
Yeah.
really did. And looking back on it, it's no wonder why I had that fake confidence.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. You
because
have
I
to.
was
Otherwise, how do you survive? Did
exactly.
your, do you think your mom knew or was she in denial of her addiction?
Denial. Yeah, very much still is, unfortunately, to
Okay.
this day, despite
Yeah.
us having
Okay.
evidence of the contrary. So it is true what they say. Alcoholism or any type of addiction is progressive. It will get worse if you do not stop. And it's just been so interesting to observe my own addictions that have come as a result of growing up in that household. Like, for example, overspending and
Hmm.
having debt. Like, as much as that's so uncomfortable and logically it makes no sense to do that, it's what had been familiar in our household, is that
Yeah.
chaos around money or food,
Yeah.
things like that.
So that just builds and builds. That builds for your math 27 years. What happens at in 2010 or 2009? We don't know. We're just making updates here, but What happens in that time period?
So you got to imagine, I'm 27. I've finished college. I'm out of my first job out of college. I'm living in Boston, spending well above my means, living in
Easy to
like
do in
a,
Boston.
exactly, living in like an apartment that costs, 50% of my income. And I was out probably Thursday to Sunday every night of the week, and
Mm,
if it wasn't, you know, I wasn't a big drinker. That was never really my thing. I never really did drugs, but you got to understand, I was in these relationships. Some were, I now look back and I'm like, they weren't really that healthy, but I'd have these like 1 year stints of relationships. And as the year would progress, if I would just get, I'd leave them before they left me. So that was how my abandonment showed up. My abandonment also showed up because some of those people were cheating as well. And so you've got to it's Boston. We're young. We're going out all the time. We got 6-inch heels going out, and we're flirting with guys to get drinks, and we're then rolling out of bed to go to work the next day. It's just your typical 20-something movie. And I go away for a weekend with my girlfriends up to um, York, Maine, and I was really hoping to see this one guy who I just had such a crush on. And I didn't. And I was so bummed. But we went to a party and I ended up meeting this guy. And this is sort of the pivotal moment, is where fast forward, we fall in love. We're 2.5 years into a relationship. At that point, he had already cheated. I had learned about his overspending and his evading taxes and evading child support and all of these things that he was doing. And I found myself in an abusive relationship where not only it was the one night that it ever happened, but we both hit each other.
mm,
And it was my first panic attack. I've had three total, but that was my first. Didn't know what to call it, but I knew that it was something similar because my mom had had one. I'd seen her do it before. And the story goes that we were getting into our Easter. I was living at the house. He was at the bar. I had asked him to come home to help shovel because it was starting to really pile up. And I knew that they weren't going to close work the next day. And he said he'd be home in 5 minutes, in 5 minutes, in 5 minutes. And then he didn't. And he kept just, I'd call the bar, I'd call a cell. Yeah, yeah, I'll be home in 5 minutes. I'm like, that was 3 hours ago. And now all of a sudden, my little Katie starts going back to those days where I would do the same thing to my mom at all those ages, 7, 8, etc. And so afraid of being alone at the house and like terrified of something bad happening or being stuck or abandoned or lonely. And he came in, and I remember just bringing my fist up to his face, and I opened my hand last minute and I just yelled, "How dare you disrespect me?" And he chased me, he try to throw me out the front door in the middle of a huge snowstorm. And somehow this little 5'3", 140 pounds soaking wet, and he's 6'4", 6'5", 220, could not lift me up. I don't know, by the grace of God, but the panic attack ensued, and my life changed from that very moment. A couple of things I can go into detail if you want, but
yeah,
I'm happy to
sure.
pause. Yeah.
No, I mean, I think there's so many people that have unfortunately found themselves in that circumstance. And at the same time, you've seen all the signs all along the way, but you dismiss them. And then forgive me if I'm assuming this is how you might have felt, but I've been in this situation where you're like, how did I get here?
Oh my God, that's exactly what I did. I remember
But you like
driving.
saw it all too, right? Like, so you're
Yeah,
like, I've seen it all, but then how did I get here?
so true. I remember driving down to Boston. The car was packed. I left in the middle of the night, and I called down to my dad, and I was like, "This is like a fucking Lifetime special movie. Like, what guy meets girl, they fall in love, he cheats, he lives this double secret life." And I'm like, and now we're hitting, like, I don't even think I told my dad we had hit each other or tried to, but I did say, like, threw me out of the house. And I was like, I just don't know how we got here. And I will say I ended up going back, and then I ended up leaving shortly after. And there was so much shame. But then I realized now, oh, that is domestic abuse. Like that is the like, sadly, he was suffering from addictions, but he was also, and I don't say this term lightly, he was diagnosed with narcissism. And it makes so much sense now that I know that title and that diagnosis. But at the time, it's the gaslighting, the love bombing that occurred very early on, that it changed everything for me. And what it changed specifically was I got into Al Anon,
Mm,
and it's a 12-step recovery group for people who are affected by addiction. And I was given that recommendation. This is a wild story. My dad had a best friend. Her name's Di. I can share that. Di was a best friend of my dad's ever since I was a little girl. And she was so close with all my family members. And my dad on that drive down said, I think you should call Di. And I'm like, yeah, I'm not going to call her. Well, you bet your ass. I called her when I left the second time.
mm,
And she said, you ready to do things differently? I said, yeah, I'll do anything you tell me to do. And she goes, get your butt to Al Anon. And so we started reading the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous, which I had no idea was even a thing. And every time it said alcohol, we replaced the word with relationship. And I realized I was addicted to toxic and unhealthy relationships, not just in my love life, at work, with my friendships, with my family members. Like, and I never knew at that time. And I say this always to people. I'm always like, I will, I'll probably never thank him like in person, but I've thanked him so many times across different podcasts and coaching is because he was a soulmate in the respect, not the like, oh my God, I'm so in love. It's my soulmate. He was a soulmate because he was the direct mirror of what I needed to see in order to heal what
that's
was
big of
not
you.
loved. What an incredible, what an incredible gift I was given despite how much pain I went through because the highs were high, the lows were lows. When they were great, it was awesome. When it wasn't, it was terrible. And I always kept thinking like I'm built for this. Like if things are relationships are tough, it's fine. Like if anybody's listening and you've been through that, relationships are not tough. It doesn't have to be hard. You don't have to stay in order to be loved when you feel like shit. And I never knew that.
Hmm.
And I realize now that that was a direct correlation to how I grew up with my mom. And
Yeah.
my dad was not like that at all. So I said, I wish I spent more time with him when I was younger. But yeah, it changed the course of everything. I had no idea that I would start a career um, and by the way, I started companies before this one talking about some of this stuff. I had no idea that this would be what it was. And to be like, oh, this shitty thing that happened to me has completely changed the entire direction of my life.
Yeah. Sometimes these hard moments create the purpose if we can get past that point in which we can start changing. I hear it a lot. A lot of people, their purpose is now defined by the things that they've gone through. And had you moved with your dad and you lived with your dad and you found this different, you experienced a love that was maybe more appropriate for you as a child, and you know, would you be having this conversation now? Like
Maybe
there's so
not.
many
Right.
little, right, because you were a product of what you knew, all the familiar things, and then you start to, if you don't have those in your life, then you're like, I need those in my life to feel normal. Like I need someone calling me names
I need
because
the chaos.
otherwise I don't know how to function right now. And it's really hard to say those things out loud when, now that we're past it, it's easier to say these things out loud because we realize the patterns that we were doing. But it just, and it makes so much sense just logically of why you would have done those things, why you would have moved through those things. I'm sorry that you had to go through it, but also like it feels like this Katie is this way because of all the shit that you went through.
It's so true. And I remember it also taught me living in that environment that it was very hard to sit still,
Mm,
very hard to sit still. Like if I was sick for a few days, I could never be with myself. I always had to be going 90 miles an hour, busy, 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 busy. That is one of the greatest gifts that going through Al Anon, having a sponsor, working the steps has given me because I think everybody thinks of 12 step and they think of AA. It's so much more than that. They have so
Yeah.
many different programs for eating, under eating, codependency, as I described, sex, love, porn addictions, like gambling, you name it. There's
You
a
name it.
program out there that's free, which is incredible. But I think we talked about this at the beginning, like during those pivotal moments, right? Like the being bullied and never not seeing a way out, then my mom hitting me and that being the reason why I left the house and ended up going and studying abroad. And then the, you know, the fight that I ended up being like my mom in that instance of hitting. I never realized that in the midst of it, in so much pain, that there was a way out. I didn't have people
Mm,
in my life like my mom. We did go to therapy when as I was younger, so I knew that that was an option as I got older. But I couldn't ever find the right therapist who deeply understood what it's like to A, grow up in an environment like this, or B, experience it in real time now. Everybody else had been through a case study or, whatever, this bullshit, reading a book. And I was like, no,
right.
I need somebody who knows what it's like to do the, well, I feel bad. What are they going to think of me? I don't want to leave. I don't want to hurt them. But if I give them money, they're going to ask for more. It's like this dance we do. Um, and that's not to say, Matt, that like I haven't then gotten into toxic relationships afterwards. It's a big part of my story is that the guy that I had a crush on, that I went up to Maine initially for, we ended up falling in love and we had a beautiful relationship for 2.5 years once I got really healthy,
Mm,
which was really quite incredible. And it was something that we both said, like, we just had always wanted to do. We just weren't ever in the place to be able to do it. And I ended up moving to a town that I'd always loved as a kid and have lived here now for almost 6 years. But I will say that in between that relationship ending and then now being in a really healthy, which is the healthiest and happiest I've ever been personally, but also in a romantic relationship, and in all aspects, really, friends, family, you name it. It's wild to think how much pain I was in and I couldn't see how good it was going to be. So, like, the life that I prayed for then and to get through that pain, I actually am living that life now. And so it's hard because there's times where I'm like, okay, I know I should be grateful because I'm living the life now that I wanted a few years ago, but I want more. And this is where that Catholic guilt comes in sometimes because it's kind of like, well, you shouldn't want for nothing and like you have everything you need. And it's not selfish to want more. And that's like literally what I heard when I was praying recently. Like, this world is so abundant and I know it's really tough right now, the way that the world is, the administration, the way that things are just going down. But we can already start to see, I mean, we're recording this November 5th, like we're already seeing massive changes in just
mm-hmm.
24 hours. So it's like because of being an empath and being so empathetic, the weight of the world literally sometimes still falls on my shoulders because I was taught to behave that way, but I was also made that way.
Yeah.
But then I also have to remember, like, it's okay to appreciate exactly where you are today and also want more.
Mm-hmm.
Because I told you earlier, like, sometimes I have bouts of depression and anxiety and overwhelm. And these are topics I teach my clients. And
Yeah.
so, sometimes that can lead to imposter syndrome. But I have to remember, like, I always do this two things. Whenever I'm going through it, I go, okay, I know that there's going to be, like, I'm so uncomfortable right now because there's about to be something incredible on the other side of this, but fuck, can we just hurry up and get there? And then I also say, okay, then maybe I'm going through this because I need to talk or teach someone else about this. So that's helped me move through it while also not forgetting that I'm in it right now and that I need help
Mm-hmm.
and to call
I
my
mean,
coach. Yeah. Therapist.
you're
Yeah.
normalizing it. I think that's important
Mhm.
for your clients too, is like, like, yes, you can teach them how to feel certain ways or do certain things or approach certain things, but also, like, it's okay if these things come about because you're a complex human being. Like, these are going to happen. I was curious though, did you, and I'm weirdly making these assumptions, but did you, in these time periods in which you were go, 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 busy, 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 don't want to be alone, don't want to be alone with my own thoughts, did you have spots of depression, anxiety, those things? Were they like voices and those things as well?
Yeah, they were. So
Okay.
the suicidal ideations didn't start until was in the midst of ending that relationship that I said was like the pivotal moment. That's when I really knew I'm like, fuck, I need to get help. Like, I know that this isn't normal. And I also know, well, not normal. Let me pause. It is normal under the circumstances that I am experiencing, but I think my circumstances are not making me happy. And so, and knowing that my grandfather had died of suicide, I'm like, okay, well, clearly there's mental health issues in our family. Same with my Nana. Like, my Nana had depression. But bear in mind that, like, from, 3 years old when my parents got divorced up to 27, the amount of, I was so anxious. Like, I was probably more anxious than I was depressed. I just worried about everything and everyone, and I always wanted to be in control. Like, and I was always trying to control other people. And I didn't know that until people would blow up at me and be like, get off my shit. Like, you're so anxious. Like, your anxiety is giving me anxiety. And that isn't the best way to go about it if you love someone who has anxiety. That's would be my, that was, I've now said, like, if you want to give me that feedback, say it so lovingly, because that's just a younger part of me just trying to scream for attention. But I will say that then from 27 to even now at 42, it's been more, it's been a mix of both. Like, sometimes the depression is heavy because there's like the guilt of, or there's shame of like, oh, I'm not where I want to be. And then the anxiety will kick in and be like, let's worry about all this shit we can't control.
Mm-hmm.
So, as much as there's been happy moments and times where I've been able to be more calm and more present and less anxious dramatically, there are times it still pops up. Like, I have a hard time being a passenger in a car. That is
Mm.
one. I've been in 9 or so accidents as a passenger. And it's brutal sometimes being in the passenger seat, but like, lovingly, my boyfriend's always like, I got you. It's okay. Do you need me to back up a little bit? I'm like, yeah, that would be awesome. Like, he now understands, and I'm with somebody who can understand that you don't want to be sarcastic or be
Right.
or put me down. If you want to make me feel better and be loving towards me, you'll help me heal this by being loving and kind.
Yeah. And part of that question, I was curious, and I don't know if it happens to other people, but because you were so busy and you were running, running, running all
Oh
the
yeah,
time,
good point.
I was curious if that now that you're slowed down a little bit and you listen to yourself and you have the time with yourself, is that when things come up more because it's finally like time for your body to talk to you kind of thing? So it
That's a
sounds like
great point.
no, because it kind of like probably ebbed and flowed and maybe it was always on high back then and now you have a more centered feel in life, right? And then so it's a little bit more pronounced when it does happen.
Great question. So I'm trying to think back in the day. I think because I was going 90 miles an hour, the depression would only really hit when I was by myself. But the
Quiet time.
anxiety, yeah, but the anxiety was on all the time. And then now I notice when I'm more grounded, like, I had a really busy last week and this week. And being so busy, it didn't leave room for me to sit with myself. And so when I did last week, it popped up the suicidal ideation. And I was like, okay, like, let's look at that. And then it just quietly went away. And then when it popped up again on Saturday, I remember saying to my boyfriend, like, I think I need more quiet time this week to be home and like with myself. And so, like, I did 12-step recovery work and I was writing and journaling. And you're right, like, being alone now is so soothing to me versus back then I was just trying to fill it with people, places, things to make me feel better.
Yeah, I think it's I mean, your story to me and your pivot to me feels so very grounded in self awareness. The things that you've quote unquote improved about your life is because now you can recognize, now you can see, now you can sit with, now you're not maybe all the time over analyzing or stressing about, but like, like for instance, playing pickleball, and you had the awareness to go, all right, Katie, we're going to slow down. We're going to go talk to your love of your life, and we're going to tell him all the things that are going, because this is what you need. The old version of you probably would have done something different because you
Right.
didn't
Just would
have
have
the
played.
awareness. You would
Yeah.
have played, it would have got worse. You would have just pushed it under the rug. And then, so like so much of your story from the parts that we've talked about today feels so much importance to me to highlight that self-awareness element, because for myself it was like things didn't feel better for me until I had the ability to wake up and realize I was in a bad mood and be like, okay, you're in a bad mood, and that's okay. You're not always going to be in a bad mood. You've moved through this before, but like before, I would get mad about being in a bad mood, and then
Yeah.
things just spiral and get so much worse. But the ability to just like sit and reflect and be totally aware of who you are and why you're doing the things that you do feels like it just leads you through life. So I don't want to put that on you, but that's what it feels like from the outside view.
I appreciate it that it's such a compliment because that wasn't always the case. Like I
Yeah.
remember around that time that I had gone through the breakup, that was the big moment. I was told by a peer at work that I had terrible self awareness. And he was right. I
Mm.
didn't. I didn't understand how my actions impacted other people. If I was away from my desk, how that phone would ring over to them. That meant they were chained. Like I didn't. And I didn't for a while, especially those first like 2 years in 12 step. But I will say that going to 12 step and having a sponsor who is just someone with more experience, strength, and hope than I did, she was also a therapist. So it was really powerful to be side by side with her every single week, talking on the phone for an hour, but also being able to like text and voice memo. It's actually why I built my coaching business the way it is around how I was supported.
Oh,
Is dramatic. Like the self awareness was huge. And to this day, thank you for that compliment because it's so heartwarming because I have worked very hard at that. And I've also worked very hard at body awareness too, like paying attention to like, what do I need in order to take care of my body? Is it pushing through to a workout or is it actually that my knee hurts and maybe I should just, you know, chill or go for a walk or whatever? Like, it's something that I've worked very hard at. And if so that I'm on my 16th year in recovery. So that's like 16 years of trying to be more self-aware and conscientious of other people and myself.
yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's beautiful. I think it's important. I don't think it's like a one and done thing either. I think you're always going to have to work on it. It's going to be, I'm always going to be the kid with the dead mom, and I still have to process things related to that just because that was the journey I was on for so long that it's just deeply embedded in me. And that perfectionism piece, like I can see it now, but I also can't always get rid of it because
Same. Yeah.
it's in my DNA now at this point, like it's just everything about me. So I love the honesty and the awareness that how you show up now as a human. I didn't know you before, but I can
Mm.
imagine how the people around you can get this is gonna sound bad, infected by the way you show up in the world, and like that imprints on them, and they can take on those traits. Infected is like the worst word.
No,
Sorry for
but
that, but
but no, I've been like, oh, your laugh is so infectious, and then I'm like, oh wait, is that actually the right way to say it?
yeah.
Thank you. I mean, that means so much to me, and I do. I was asked this question on a podcast recently about like, what do I want to leave the world? Like, if I were to die tomorrow, like, what would I? And it was the impression of that I cared, that I really
Mm,
cared about them, because I think that this world is so small. You never know who you're going to run into 10 years later. It's like, it's not people pleasing, it's respect at this point. It's like,
mhm.
I don't have to like you and you don't have to like me, but we got to respect each other. And how can we be kind and caring towards one another? And we're seeing this again, and not to talk politics, but like in the administration, and it's like, we so deeply, regardless of what side of the coin you are on, at the end of the day, we're all people. And all
Hmm.
we want to do is to be loved and taken care of and be able to take care of ourselves and other people. And like, I hope that positivity spreads positivity. And I remember my mentor saying that to me, like, it's okay that you have negative thoughts. It's okay that you feel sad or uncomfortable, but just remember that, like, in the face of absolute mass destruction and the fear that is being placed upon us in any situation, whether it's a personal one that somebody's going through now, or what we're facing in the US, it's like, how can I come from a place of faith versus fear? And I don't mean that, again, religiously. I mean it like, how can I say something good's going to come of this? I know it. Something good is going to come of this. And I hope that that spreads. I hope that is infectious, like, because
Yeah.
it's, when you're in it, it's fucking thick to go through that fear and that anxiety and not know what the outcome's going to be. So, what a lovely compliment. I really appreciate that. And I do hope that it is infectious, the self awareness and the kindness.
It's well, it's what I see, and I call it like I see it. So I I think I think what you're doing is wonderful. I'm curious if this version of you and the way that you show up in the world fully, no apologies, well, some apologies probably, but not a lot. If you could go back to the Katie, let's say the Katie that was actually going to take a chance on herself and go abroad, is there anything that you would want to like whisper in her ear about
Mm.
what you know now or something that would help her?
Yeah, I feel like I would tell her, like, don't get me wrong, she had a lot of fun, but like, I think I would tell her, like, go have fun, take bigger risks, not with your health or your body, but rather like seeing the world, saving more money. That would be another one, is like, you can spend and go see the world, but let's like save as well. I think I would just tell her, like, you don't have to worry. Everything is gonna work out exactly the way you want. Go leave the nest, like,
Hmm.
bigger than Australia. Like, go leave the nest. And it's okay if you feel bad and uncomfortable, but you don't need to, because it's all
Yeah.
going to work out.
Yeah. The world is bigger than, the house that you lived in with your mom. And she probably wouldn't have listened, but it's okay. None of our younger
Yeah.
selves would have listened,
Oh,
and we
God,
had to go
no.
through these things. Yeah. They're like, who are you? Don't do
Such
that.
a fear of authority figure. And so, like, don't tell me what to do. Oh, I was such, I don't want to call myself a brat because that was a bullying term I got, but I felt that I knew it all. And I was so just, just so irresponsibly confident, and I didn't know what I thought I knew. But you're
Yeah.
right, I wouldn't have listened because my dad tried to tell me and I didn't.
Yeah. It's
So,
okay.
but it's
This
okay.
is, it
This was
brought you
yours
here.
was Yeah,
Yeah,
this is
exactly. So if people are listening and they hear your story, they resonate with your story, they want to connect with you, they want to maybe tell you their story for the first time or just say how much it means that you shared it. What's the best way to find you, find your business? Like tell us a little bit more about that so that people can get in touch because I love for when they bug you.
so. And what's funny is, like, I love it. Like, people are always like, oh, I don't want to bother. And I'm like, you're not bothering. Like,
No, it's
this is
great.
my life purpose. Like, is to, the shit I've been through is to talk about it, tell someone else, then that person be like, oh my God, you and I are like twins. Oh my gosh. It's like, if one thing hit home for you, that either for yourself or like you're sending this to a friend because you're like, oh my God, this person needs to hear it, send me an email. You can literally email me directly, support@katiegrimes.com, KATIEGRIMES. I would love that. If you're on Instagram, though, that's where you're going to get me. Like, my team is going to answer support@katiegrimes.com and then they'll forward it to me. But if you want to actually DM me, kg.katiegrimes is the best way to actually communicate. And as much as we have automation set up just so that we don't lose sight of somebody wanting a coaching or course, it very much is me in there at this point. And if you're wanting more knowledge and just more of these moments that are kind of, every topic you and I talked about, I broke down into little podcast episodes. My podcast is called Anything for Love. And you can just search that on Spotify or iTunes or Apple, I guess. Yeah.
I love that. And I'll link to all those things so people
Oh,
they don't even have to
thanks. Yeah.
search. They can
They
just
don't even
go to the
search.
show
Just
notes. Yep. Just click the button
perfect.
and connect. I really highly encourage listeners to reach out to my guests because one, it's it's such a power when we can tell someone else how their story affected us, but also then we hear it of how it affected someone else. It's like there's so much ripple effect
Oh my
of
God.
power that comes from connecting with each other and telling each other how we feel.
And honestly, the little girl in me who needed validation and love and just to know that like you're doing a great job, kid, she's still here. So
Yeah.
like and I don't say it to like boost my ego. I say it to ease my depression.
Yeah.
Right? Is when somebody says, somebody, I walked into a room today and somebody was like, oh my God, I'm totally fangirling. And I turned around and I go, who's here? And she was like, you. And I was like, what the fuck? And she goes, I follow you on Instagram. I heard you on this podcast and like, I've been following you. Your content resonates so much with me. And I was like, mouth wide open. And I started tearing up. And she was like, see, this is why I love you. You're so normal and like so relatable. And I was like, I pour my heart and soul into Instagram because I keep it so honest. I was like, that is so validating. I was like,
Yeah.
thank you for making my morning. And she was
I
like,
love that.
no, I do. It was just, it does. It means so much. I know you probably feel the same way. It's like
Yeah.
you pour your heart and soul in this.
Yeah, it's so important that we can share our stories, and I hope that our conversation inspires other people to share their own stories with people, even if it's just a friend. It doesn't have to be on a podcast. It can just
Yeah, yeah.
be, just share your story with the people around you, and I think you're going to find a lot more connection than the things that separate you. So in
Yeah.
this time in the world, it's nice to
Yeah.
find that human connection. So thank you for
Sure
coming on
is.
this journey with me, Katie, and having this conversation, probably not knowing where we were going to go.
No, and it's okay. I feel like I just trusted that like whatever was supposed to come up and whatever someone was supposed to hear is what they were going to hear. And I just can't thank you enough for being brave enough to say, I'm going to start to tell my story and other people's stories so that other people will feel less alone through their hard times. Because as we talked about, like when you go through a hard time and it feels terrible, you're not sure A, that you're the only one that is going through it, and B, how if it's ever going to end. And it's so painful. So I appreciate you being brave enough to say, as much as I miss my mom and I wish she was here, that story of what happened to her, has she must be so proud looking at you and just being like, holy shit, he's like now taking the story and telling it and then connecting with other people, and like we're all here just so proud. So I'm like tearing up. Like seriously, I really applaud you for doing that. It takes a lot of bravery to tell your story and to let other people tell theirs so we can all feel more connected to each other.
I accept that. Thank you. That's very kind of you. I just don't want other people to go through the 20 years of, I mean, you too, you had 27 plus years of that. And I had 20 years of just like pushing it down and not addressing it and not telling people exactly how I felt. And it's much more freeing on this side where, you take it or leave it, but this is actually how I feel as a human. And I think that's what we should do, and accept that we all have differences, but also we have so much that keeps us connected in those ways. So thank you for that. And I will say thank you to everyone listening. You would think after 200 and something episodes I would know how to end these, but I don't. So I'm just going to say goodbye, and I'll be back next week with a brand new episode. Thanks again, Katie.
Thank you.
For more information, please visit www.thelifeshiftpodcast.com.